listening to GMR Radio. And now, the Great Movie Radio Show.
All right, everyone. Quiet on the set. Places. We've got a show to make here. Are Chris and Gabe ready? They are. Okay, everyone. In 3, 2, 1, and... Coming to you live from sunny Orlando, Florida, it's the Great Movie Radio Show, a movie talk podcast starring Chris and Gabe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Great Movie Radio Show. Chris Schneider here, and I have my lovely, wonderful Vanna White co-host, Gabe Jaramillo. What's up, buddy?
Hey, guys. You can't see, but I'm displaying the letters, right? She's from Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy or something?
Yeah. So we have with us today a wonderful duo of filmmakers and podcasters themselves, Dalton Burdette and Ryan Woerner, who I used to work with in the movie industry. They have an awesome podcast called Movie Nights, and it's spelled with a K because they're from UCF and their mascot is the Knights. And so it's kind of a play on words, which I thought was humorous and clever. So they do short films, which they've won multiple awards in the film circuit. They've had an LA premiere, which is pretty awesome. And like I said, they do a podcast. And they've agreed to come on the show against their will. And we're just happy to have them. I love talking shop with them, and I always have. And when we started the program, I always wanted to have them on. So this is a great opportunity to sit down and talk with them. Dalton and Ryan, thanks for coming on the GMR show. We appreciate having you.
Oh man, the pleasure is really all on this end, let me tell you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, seriously, thanks. And when I first saw that, a few months back that you're like, I'm starting a podcast, I literally looked at, I forget who I was with, I might have even been with Ryan.
I think it was me.
I looked at him and I was like, he better have us on at some point. Because
roots run deep, man.
Yeah, so yeah, no, that was, this is really exciting. I'm a fan of the show. And again, just thanks for all the kind words and thanks for having us.
All right, no problem. Well, first of all, this is a great movie ride-oriented podcast. Have either of you ever ridden the ride before it went down, or I won't say went down, but it was taken from us? So
we put her down slowly.
Yeah.
Just like Old Yeller. No, but I had ridden the ride. I'd gotten the chance to ride it more than once, and I was a big boy fan of the ride.
I personally have not, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
Well, thank you for joining us. You could leave now. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was very nice.
Well, why don't you both tell us about Movie Nights? I know I kind of did a nutshell version, but you guys actually do the thing. So why don't you tell us about Movie Nights, what you do, what you're about, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're the Movie Nights. Basically, we just have a small production company out of Orlando, Florida, where we put, a majority of our things on YouTube. We make short films, we do skits, podcasts. They used to be weekly. During the quarantine, they're monthly, but hopefully we'll get back to a weekly thing. Mm-hmm. And, yes, it is spelled with a K because we think that we're clever, and, that was really funny when we first came up with it, and then...
It just kind of stuck.
Yeah, so, it's just one of those things. But, we've been fortunate enough to be able to produce some short films that I like, and, thankfully some other people have liked them as well. We've been fortunate enough to go to some festivals, win some awards. Not major ones, but, just getting our start out there. And it's been loads of fun doing it, and, Ryan here is my producing partner in crime and podcasting. He's always there for the ride to make sure everything goes well behind the scenes, and also he is excellent at whenever I lose my mind, he kind of gets me back to par. So he's always been that guy, and he's a really talented guy. And like me, we all just try to learn something new every day, and you always like to check each other's progress. And I think both of us have grown greatly as content producers and filmmakers, and wouldn't rather do it with anybody else, buddy.
Thank you, Dalton. Yeah, no, it's definitely a fun journey. I can say personally I joined the Movie Nights train late, but I'm glad that I'm here. I'm glad that I do have Dalton as my partner through this, and we do really work well together. I can say I'm proud of that and how we work, and excited to see what the future of Movie Nights holds.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you guys for being on the show. You're correct. You were in my thoughts when I started the podcast, so don't worry. It just took a while to get the thing running. And of course, we've tried to incorporate our guests being movie writers, but once in a while we're trying to bring in people from quote unquote the industry, The Biz.
Oh,
And
you heard it here first, folks. We're in the industry.
You're in the biz. You've made it. No, but like I said, you guys had an LA premiere, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was so was it I don't remember much. It was part of multiple short films premiering at what theater was it in LA?
Flamel NoHo 7. It's a very specific name, but
Yeah.
we had made a short in 2017 called No More Safe Haven. It was just this little action short that we made, and it'd come out. It did like a brief festival run. And then about 2 years later, we got an email from this company called Four Walled Productions, and their goal was to kind of give short films theatrical releases. And they were like, hey, we like your film. We want to put it with a bunch of other shorts and put it out in a, 1 week theatrical distribution in Los Angeles. Are you guys cool with that? And I was like, yeah, no, of course we want to go out in LA and see that happen. That's like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And just, anyone who makes, films or short films, it's just a personal dream to see something you've made out in LA. So that was a really fun, really great experience. And just seeing something you made on the big screen is just, it's unforgettable. It was great.
I can imagine. I remember when you posted it on Facebook, and I think I was, I don't know if I was like viewing one of your podcasts and just kind of checking things out. And I saw it, and I was like, holy crap, what? That's like every filmmaker's dream when you're starting small and you're trying to get out there. That was so incredible. I bought a ticket, actually, even though I wasn't in LA.
Thank you.
I was so happy to see that you had, made a film that made it to LA, and I was like, yeah, come on, support that. So what an opportunity, man. That is so cool.
It means the world that you bought a ticket. Thank you.
Hey, man, it was one of the coolest I think it's one of the only times I've bought a ticket for a movie I didn't actually watch in the theater with that ticket. So it's a conversation starter for sure. But you have a new one, a new short, newer, and it's on our website. If you go to our partners page, we have you guys on there as one of our partners. And we have your short film Contrition on our page. It just won, it just got announced yesterday, right? It won Best Sci-Fi Award.
Yeah, the Vegas Movie Award.
That is so cool. And that's got to be exciting. So what's next for the movie nights? Have you guys, are you guys working on a new project, or what's up?
Before quarantine, we had a short planned to be filmed in April. And it was going to be the biggest one we've ever done. It was like a 35-page script. We had 4 locations locked down. We were good to go. It was like a really big project, and we haven't really done anything on that scale before. And then, COVID-19, and it's had to be indefinitely postponed, and until the world starts spinning again. Then hopefully we can get. And I did a virtual read-through with the cast, and everybody was great. So it sounds like everyone's still on board. But you just still hate to see things like that get postponed. So right now we've just been making some just short little videos for YouTube, doing some podcasts, and just trying to stay busy during this weird time. But hopefully when everything gets back going, we can start production on that film again, because it was one that I was very, very much so looking forward to doing.
Is there a name yet? Have you guys come up with a title, or?
Ooh, I can drop that for the first time right here, Ryan.
If you want to. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. So and this is not exciting at all, so I don't know why I'm doing this, but the title of the film was called The Local. That's what it was going to be.
I'm so excited right now.
Yeah.
So freaking excited. We just had a short film name drop first time on our show.
Boom.
Boom, The Local. That's awesome.
I really wish it was Pooh Loves Honey. But
for those of you listening, the original joke from that is probably on the cut version of this show.
But I feel bad just giving a title and no sense of what it is about. Yeah. Do you want to hear a brief synopsis?
Yeah, some hype, dude.
Yeah, let's do it. So, wow, this is actually the first time we're publicly doing the synopsis of the movie. Wow. Basically, it's inspired by old Western films, but it's going to obviously have a more modern aesthetic. Because, what I loved about old Western films was, this hero would stroll into town on a horse, save the day, and then leave. And he had, no consequences of, being this sort of local hero. Well, what if someone saved a town, but they lived in the town? And now, every time something bad happens, everyone just goes to this one person, hey, are you going to help? And, obviously, that type of responsibility being thrown on somebody is going to cause them to really kind of slip into a depression, especially if things don't always go the way they want it to when they have to step up and save a small town like that. So basically it's like a Western from the perspective of the hero can never leave, and just kind of exploring what that would be like.
Oh, wow.
That sounds awesome.
Now I'm glad you told us, because that sounds great.
Yeah, and, and obviously, we don't have the budget to make it look like a real Western, so it's kind of just going to hopefully just have a similar aesthetic and feel, and maybe with some of the score as well, which, by the way, my composer has already sent me pieces based off the script, and it's awesome. But yeah, no, it's just something we've been really looking forward to, and hopefully once everything is better, we can start filming pronto.
And now it's time for Top 5.
What we're going to do is we're going to have Gabe here is going to review top 5 favorites with both of you. Since there are 2 of you, usually we only have one guest, so this is fun. We're going to try to keep it brief, and then we're going to start around the track, and that'll be a fun time. Gabe, why don't you take away top 5?
Awesome. So we'll hit into both yours, and this is actually one of the only questions that Dalton answered 5 for.
Called out right away.
Shots fired.
I've been saving it. Cool. We'll start with you, Ryan. We'll start with your top 5 favorite films and why they're your favorites.
So Pulp Fiction. I'm a big Tarantino guy. My dad actually introduced me into Pulp Fiction, so I have a very fond memory of watching that with my dad, and it's one of his favorite movies. So just being able to experience that movie with him has a lot of sentimental value, and I think it's just all around probably one of the more perfect movies I've seen. And I don't really like to use that word when describing movies because it is such a subjective field. But I love everything about that movie. I love the nonlinear storyline that is in it, the over-the-top violence that's in it, the score, just everything about that movie really strikes a chord with me. And then I love the original Halloween, the 1978 John Carpenter Halloween. I find that movie to be very inspirational because it is such a low-budget, authentic horror movie. Because whenever I watch horror, because I'm a huge fan of the horror genre, and I like to be scared when I turn off the film. Like, what happens in my life after the movie. That's what I draw away from horror movies, and I think this Halloween movie does it perfectly for me. Just the stalker, just the creep watching you, murdering people, and just, like, watching from a distance. I just find that to be very, very unsettling.
Yeah.
And then moving on, I have Evil Dead 2. I think that is a as perfect as a movie could get. Especially when you know kind of the first movie and the drama behind it, and then them losing the rights and remaking it, and then having to basically recap the first movie, but they wanted to have more fun with it. And you really feel the authenticity of the film. You can see that Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell and everyone behind the camera are just having fun with it. And that's another very inspirational movie. Especially, being part of a film production that deals with micro budgets. And it's just very inspirational to see them make such a hit movie that is regarded as like a fantastic movie, even in a lot of the filmmakers' eyes in Hollywood, like professional filmmakers.
For sure.
And then definitely, I think it's safe to say everyone loves Star Wars, but my favorite movie is A New Hope, the original Star Wars. I think that is a prime example of the hero's journey. I think that it is just everything you would want in a space adventure sci-fi movie, and it's just revolutionary with the sounds that the what would it be? The Foley artist that had to come up with those sounds for the lightsabers and blasters and TIE fighters. Like, it's just so much fun, and I will always get giddy anytime I see Luke do the trench run at the end. It's just so much fun. And then I recently just watched this movie for the first time because I've never really been a rom-com guy. Those movies never really struck a chord with me. But I recently watched About Time, and it made it into my top 5. And it is one of the most heartwarming movies and just sad movies that I've ever seen, that like looks at consequences of changing little things that may have like this butterfly effect. And it's just so sweet, and I absolutely love that movie. And if you haven't seen About Time, I would recommend that movie to anybody. Absolutely phenomenal. And like I said, I'm not much of a rom-com guy, but that movie really stuck with me.
And I may be wrong when I say this, but Chris, I think this is the first time we've had like a rom-com come up in top 5 or even around the track, no?
I know Tracy had a few, but they're not common. So they haven't been common on our episodes, so it's that's nice.
Well, and I feel like rom-com is just a very umbrella term, because About Time really isn't a comedy. It's more of a romance movie than a typical rom-com. Because like you have like the teen dramas, which are under the rom-com. You have romantic comedies like 50 First Dates or any Adam Sandler movie. But this is just a romance movie, and there's a lot of family ties and a lot of family themes in the movie as well. So if you have a tight family connection, this movie could definitely strike a chord with you.
All right, Dalton. It's your time to shine.
Okay, basically, I put Con Air 5 times.
God, no.
No, okay. That was a joke. I do like Con Air, but that was a joke. Okay, so, and I did, because I'm that guy, I put, like, when I filled this out, like, I put in parentheses, I reserve the right to change my answers, and the only reason I do that is because I could wake up tomorrow and give you 5 different movies, just because cinema is just such a huge language for me. But from the ones listed that I have, I have to start off the bat with Jaws, and I know that that's like the typical film school answer of like, oh, what's your favorite movie? And they mentioned like the Spielberg classic Jaws. But that movie, just ever since I was a kid, has resonated with me on an emotional level. And it's also one of those films where the more you watch it, you pick up something new about how precise Spielberg's direction is. And also it starts off as a horror movie and then ends as this adventure, like Indiana Jones feel of like, hey, let's go kill that damn shark. And it's so fascinating. And also these characters, these 3 main leads are so separated the whole movie. Like none of them really have anything in common. Some of them like each other, some don't, but they all have a specific purpose. And it's not until the famous, USS Indianapolis speech right at the end where even the characters sit at the same table. Like that is when they even first just start to even physically come together, let alone emotionally. And it's just in time for the 3rd act. So for the first time in kind of the whole movie, you feel like, hey, maybe these guys have a shot at winning. Because it's like the first time they've even come close together. So just the beautiful pacing and storytelling. I could go for hours just about this movie, so I'll move on for the sake of time. But I love this movie so much. And the last thing I'll say about it is the first time I watched it, my mom had like just taught me the concept of like, oh, movies aren't real. So like the whole time I was watching it, I wasn't scared. And my mom was surprised. And she was like, wow, you're doing really good watching this movie. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's cool, based off of what you told me. And then I kind of smirked and was like, sharks aren't real. and she was like, oh no, honey, sharks are very, very real. And I was like, what? And like my whole like perspective on the movie changed, and I quickly became like this terrified child.
Oh,
but yeah,
sharks aren't real. That's so good.
That's awesome.
And but moving on to my list, I also have a Star Wars movie on here, but mine is going to be The Empire Strikes Back. Part of the reason why, I love Star Wars, but part of the reason why I put this over the original, which I do love, is just how thematically deep this film is, and it really takes this incredible journey of this first film and continues it without feeling like it's stretching the story or... every movie ever made is a money grab, but like when you watch this movie, you genuinely feel that the reason it exists is that there's more story to tell. And just throughout the whole movie, like I said, the thematic deepness, like, the scene with Yoda when he tells Luke, hey, go into that cave, and Luke's like, what should I bring? Only what you take with you. And he goes and he has that moment with the fake Darth Vader, sees himself in his shoes, is not only great foreshadowing, but also just I could just imagine being like young in like when I was young, first watching that movie, of the first time, you identifying yourself as the hero, seeing the evil that you can become, and just how that can really wrap his head around the decisions he makes. And even like a moment that gives me just chills every time I watch that film is when Yoda is trying to tell him how to get use the Force to get his ship out of the water, and he it's before the it's right after the do or do not, there's no try famous line, but I think there's a line in that scene that's even better, and I glad because I recently watched like the Mandalorian docuseries, and Taika Waititi brought up this line, and I'm really glad he did because I echo its sentiment to perfection. And it's when Yoda does get the ship out of the water, and Luke just says, "I don't believe it," and Yoda says, "That's why you fail." And it's just such a great moment of just seeing the character kind of getting beaten to his low level. And of course, there's the whole famous, "I am your father," spoilers. But it's part of this big, pop cultural phenomenon. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Oh no.
Well, Ryan, we gotta go. No, but yeah, no, I thoroughly love The Empire Strikes Back, and it's so funny when you think about that movie, and I can just imagine if this movie was around when the internet was a thing, because I felt like it would have gotten a lot of hate. Like, could you imagine the internet trolls when like, oh, suddenly you can use the Force to move objects? That wasn't in the first movie at all. Who said you can just use the Force that way? Or Force people can just be ghosts now. Oh, that's super convenient. Like I could just picture the internet going nuts on this movie. But fortunately, the storytelling is so strong and the themes are so deep that everything is perfect. And just the Han Solo's character in this movie is perfect. Okay, I'll move on. But yeah, no, love Empire Strikes Back. And also, I have Terminator 2: Judgment Day.
Yes.
And
Nice.
part of the reason. Look, I love the first Terminator movie also, like almost as much as Terminator 1, and it's partially because it's just such a sci-fi indie movie, and also just Kyle Reese is one of my favorite movie characters of all time. I love Kyle Reese. And, when I first saw this movie, going into it, basically, when I was a kid, I probably saw this when I was like 11 or 12, and I was like, man, there's not going to be Kyle Reese in this movie. I wonder how I'm going to feel about it. And then, Linda Hamilton just comes in and gives this all-star performance. They completely do a different, direction with her character. And then by the time the movie ended, I was like, yo, I want Linda Hamilton to be my mom. Like, what the hell? Like, that was awesome. And just, every, set piece, every piece of revolutionary CGI, and just the, pitch-perfect direction from James Cameron. And also, I actually was talking to my dad recently, because he likes movies, but he's not a huge movie guy like I am. But I asked him, I was like, hey, was there ever a movie, other than Star Wars and the obvious ones, was there a movie you remember seeing in theaters that you were completely blown away by? Because this movie came out when he was in college. And he said, yes, I remember going to see Terminator 2, and he told me something I didn't know. He said that in all of the marketing for that movie, the audience was not told that, mild spoilers, that Schwarzenegger was a good guy. Nobody knew that going into the movie, and that when the scene happens when both Terminators approach John Connor in the hallway, and then Schwarzenegger says, get down, and shoots the other Terminator, he said the whole audience went nuts. Because they were just oh my God, He's there to protect him.
Yes.
He's like, no one knew that. And he said that was such a huge moment in that movie. And that's something that I didn't even think about, because it's almost like Empire Strikes Back. Everybody knows Darth Vader's Luke's father, so you'll never get that moment. But with Terminator, I knew going into Terminator 2, okay, he's the good guy this time, but I could only imagine not knowing that and seeing that moment. I would have lost my mind. And, love Terminator 2. And moving on, I also have the original Alien film, Ridley Scott's Alien. And yes, I'm of the camp that I think it's better than Aliens, although I do love Aliens, so, don't get mad at me.
I'm right there with you, man. That's the same for me.
Aha, see, Ryan.
No, see, I'm a big Aliens guy.
Uh-oh.
I think Aliens is miles better.
Hey, did I interrupt your time, bro? Let's go. Okay, so in Alien is, like Jaws, and Ryan, says he doesn't like to describe films as perfect very much. Well, that's a reservation that I also, hold off of. But, in terms of Jaws and Alien, just what a perfect film. Just anything from every single shot, every frame is a painting. The set design is perfect. Every single character is unique. The building of Ellen Ripley as this badass hero that didn't start off the movie that way, but you knew that there was something special about her character when you watched that movie, and it's especially telling in these times when, you know, John Hurt's character gets the face hugger on his face, and Ellen's like, nah, he's not coming in. We're not breaking quarantine like that. No way. So, like, right in the beginning, you're like, all right, finally someone's, you know, reasonable on this ship. But then, you know, they ignore her. And then, so when she does, you know, take on the role of being the hero of that film, you're like, yes, finally, someone with a freaking brain is going to get us out of here, you know, and just the overall feeling of isolation, the just, you know, existential dread of just, and, you know, and the tagline of the movie says it all. In space, no one can hear you scream. And it's just such a horrific thing to think about, and just a realistic way of looking at it. And also, I have a soft spot for old sci-fi movies where their version of advanced tech is just like, you know, the, you know, 70s Dell computer. It's just like, I love when movies do that, because like Soylent Green also did that. Like their big thing was like slightly bigger telephones, and it was in the future. I was like, oh wow, good for you guys. You know, but like I just have a soft spot for like movies that obviously you don't know what's going to happen in the future, so you have to be careful. And I just it's just like a heartwarming thing for me. And going into the fifth one, I do get some flack from this from other like film fans and, you know, pretentious film students, which you all meet. But the movie I have on here is The Dark Knight, and it's my favorite comic book movie of all time, and I'm a huge comic book movie fan for anyone who's ever listened to me speak at all ever. And part of the reason why I consistently keep this movie in my top lists is because I rewatch it like every 3 years, every 2 or 3 years. And in my head, I'm like, I'm ready to hate it. Like, I'm ready to be like, you know what? Maybe it's not that good. Maybe it's just, you know, a fond memory I have, whatever. And then I get about 45 minutes into the movie, and I'm like, shit, no, this is so good. Like, God, why did I, why would I ever even doubt that? And then, like, you know, it's not just like Heath Ledger's performance, which is brilliant, and, you know, everyone's acting in that movie. Like, I love Gary Oldman as James Gordon. It's just that it's it's also just a perfect sequel. Like, they did such a good job in Batman Begins setting up Gotham, setting up the character of Batman, so that when you spend time away from Batman, that character never feels underdeveloped. It's just showing you a different side of the world because of the knowledge you've already previously have. And so that when this character, you know, when the Bruce Wayne Batman character gets down on his luck, gets down on his knees, feels like there's nothing he can do to win, that really gets to you, because you're all of a sudden, this hero who seemed unbreakable at the end of Batman Begins is now emotionally just can't move. He's crippled. And just, you know, part of that obviously is because of the Joker, and just, you know, having the Harvey Dent storyline and how that all played through, just so perfect. And it perfectly set up the end of the trilogy. And it's just, it was such this was a crime movie first, then a Batman movie second. Yeah. And it was such a smart choice by the filmmakers. The direction by Christopher Nolan is so top-notch. Like, you could cut the tension with 50 knives. Like, that movie is so suspenseful. And, you know, the interrogation scene with Batman and the Joker, just every time I watch that scene, I'm just like, God, I'm watching a masterclass of acting right now. And just... And, you know, the use of practical stunts, like flipping the semi-truck, was so awesome. And yes, this movie does have a, you know, I'll admit I'm a big Batman fan bias. This was the first movie I ever saw in an IMAX theater.
Oh, so, yes. So that was wonderful in IMAX. I remember that. So that's also just a big, you know, factor in just my love and appreciation for this movie. But that's why every so often when I rewatch it, I'm like, all right, let's be realistic. Let's you know, see if this movie is as good as you remember. And then Joker does that pencil trick, and I'm like, this movie's awesome. So yeah, that's I reserve the right to have 5 different movies tomorrow, but yeah, those would be my my top 5 today.
Nice.
Part of some Facebook group where it's like film fans, blah blah blah. I don't even remember what it's called, but they asked, it was name a film series that your favorite isn't the most popular of that series, and of course for Star Wars, mine's Return of the Jedi. And for the Dark Knight trilogy, I guess we'll call it, Batman Begins is my favorite. Return of the Jedi, because it finishes that whole 3-part story so well. And I was sad with the changes they made for the special edition. I'm glad I have a theatrical version of it because, the original Ewok celebration at the end was ruined. How dare you? But I remember the part when he's on the sail barge about to be thrown into the pit, and that music, dun, done starts going, and my dad would just like watch that scene over and over and over, and I just fell in love with that movie. And then Batman Begins. It's probably one of the it's the Star Wars A New Hope of Nolan's Batman trilogy. It really encompasses the origin story, the hero story, and like you said, because they did so well setting that movie in the right tone, when you visit him again in The Dark Knight, it just breaks you. And you feel so emotionally attached to him because of the attachment that was built in Batman Begins. And it's so underrated, and I love those movies so much.
And I'll even chime in on Batman Begins just briefly. Sorry.
It's okay. It's movie talk, whatever.
Yeah, but with Batman Begins, what people also tend to forget is so many people and critics were ready to hate that movie because the most previous Batman movie was Batman and Robin. Yep. And there's a reason that they didn't make another Batman movie for 8 years. It's because they just had no idea how they're even going to approach that. And so, getting an auteur filmmaker like Chris Nolan and just like rolling the dice on him and him just kind of proving naysayers like, no, it's a good character if you just do him right. And Batman Begins is a great movie. It's my second favorite of the trilogy, but I had an ending to that and it left me, but yeah.
Well, that's okay.
It's time to go around the track. Ready when you are, CB.
We're going to start our around the track and going into musical, because we're going to start going in there. It's funny that you, Ryan, were saying that both of you have different viewpoints on film, yet the first movie we're going to visit on the track in musical, you both have it as your favorite, and it's La La Land.
Yes.
So we'll let Ryan go first, since Dalton, you just talk. What about La La Land to you? Because it's a very recent musical.
Mm-hmm.
What about it?
Just everything, I again, I'm going to use this word that I claim I don't like using because I really don't, but it's a perfect movie in my eyes. Everything from the score to Damien Chazelle's direction to the acting to the chemistry. The thing that I take away most from this movie would definitely have to be the ending. I know a lot of people hate it because, spoilers, Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling don't end up together. But I feel like that ending that is in the movie is justifiable to the journey that they went through. And I think because they didn't end up together, because they just have that moment in the club where they just look at each other and they acknowledge each other's success and their lives and what they've done separate of each other, I think in that moment they just understand that they just can't work together. And the ending is just what makes it for me, because I feel like if they would have ended up together, it just would not have been the same movie or had the same effects. And that's definitely the thing I take away most from it, is the ending.
Gotcha. Dalton, what about you?
For me, I echo a lot of Ryan's sentiments. And, picking, when you say favorite musical, it's almost blasphemous to say a movie that just came out a few years ago. But it's just resonated with me. Like, I saw this movie like 4 times in theaters. Mm-hmm. And there's just something about it that kept bringing me back. And while I echo everything Ryan said about the direction, the chemistry between the leads, the music, all of that, the thing that always, there are 2 parts of this movie that put it in the yes, thank you, fantastic for me. And that is Emma Stone's audition song towards the end of the film, when the casting directors are just just tell us the story. And because that just kind of encapsulates their whole journey, the whole script of that movie in a whole, about having a dream, going to Hollywood, just tell us the story. And that whole sequence and the way it's filmed is beautiful. But also, at the end of the film, since, Ryan's brought it up, how the film ends, there's that last look scene where they both finally acknowledge each other. And it's different for each person. For Emma Stone, it is a nod of, it was nice to see you again. And in Ryan Gosling's face, you can just see he's happy to see her, but man, he wishes things went differently. But he also knows that she doesn't feel the same way. And it's this heartbreaking look on his face. And it really all starts that I didn't even pick up on until the 3rd time I watched the movie, which was around the first to second act break. There's a sequence where Emma Stone is on the phone with her mother, and Ryan Gosling overhears them talking about him, Sebastian, and she's like talking to the mother, and she says, well, no, he doesn't have a whole lot of money right now, but like he's going to work on it. He's going to do it. And he overhears her, and then suddenly his motivation changes from, I got to open this club, to I have to make money so I can support this girl. And then when he sells out and joins the jazz band, the first thing she does is get mad, like, why'd you do that? And he like doesn't know how to communicate to her, like, I did this for you. And then he realizes that was a mistake on his part, that he shouldn't have even done that. So that look at the end is just all of those feelings in his head of just like, I messed up and I did it wrong and I'm sorry. And so when they separate, it just makes it so much, sad. And, like watching that movie is kind of like how I feel today, like, wow, I'm really sad, but I'm not dead. So
I did say when we were talking originally, you would have to say that in the when you explained it, and you did. You ended it with it. Awesome. Well, since you both share that movie as your favorite, on the next ones we'll have to split it up, of course, because you have different movies. I'm gonna let you both like choose one part of that movie, like together. So you guys get to jointly share with us what you would put on the ride for La La Land.
Ooh. Let's see. For me, for La La Land, I would do the planetarium sequence, where they're where they start floating in midair at the museum and they start dancing. Like, I think if obviously, this version of the Great Movie Ride has like a, Hollywood blockbuster budget where you can have like holograms and shit, and it looks really cool. And you're able to pull that off. But I think if you want to show a slice of that movie to an audience on the ride, that would be the perfect one. That, and just have all of the other scenes be Con Air.
It's going to be the running joke of the episode is Con Air. What about you, Ryan?
If you really want to get a feel for their relationship, especially during the beginning stage, I would have to put when they're at the party and it's after Emma Stone's character suggests that his band plays Iran, and then they meet up and talk, and he's like, really, you're going to suggest Iran from a serious musician? And just that banter is so perfect, and it just really encompasses what their relationship is like in the beginning, like during the honeymoon phase of their relationship. And I absolutely love that, and it just it goes to show their chemistry on screen.
I want that just because the excuse of being able to play Flock of Seagulls on the Great Movie Ride.
Oh, absolutely.
That would be incredible. Okay, so we're going to go into mob crime, and both of you have different ones. Dalton, you have The Godfather Part 2, which I think has been on everybody's list that we've had on the show. But Ryan, you've brought a new one to the table. Thank you. No harsh words against you, Dalton. It's okay.
No, I get it. I'll just leave.
No, it's a great one. I haven't seen it yet.
I know it's
great,
I'm joking.
But Reservoir Dogs, another Tarantino favorite. Dalton, we'll let you go first. Godfather has been talked about many a time, but I'm sure you could bring in some new light.
Probably not, but I'll try. First, but really quick, I will say Reservoir Dogs is my favorite Tarantino movie, so I'm excited for what Ryan has to say about it. But for Godfather Part 2, part of the reason why this film has the leg up over Part 1 for me is mostly because the way that it told two parallel stories of, Michael Corleone in the present and Vito Corleone, played by Robert De Niro, in the past, and how it uses both of their stories, how they're geographically different, and, it's a different time. Thematically, they're both going through a similar journey in the same thing. So, and, it's also more tragic in that Vito didn't want Michael to become the head of the family. So you're seeing this character become somebody his father didn't want him to become, while showing the father becoming that same person. And it was just this really interesting, heartbreaking tale, especially, when you bring Fredo into it, and I won't, spoil it since you haven't seen it, but, there's a lot of betrayal is a huge theme in this movie. And the way that this film not only deals with betrayal, but the abuse of power, and just sort of the lack of empathy and lack of sympathy that you get once you're in a position where you're considered weak if you have those things, is just really daunting and almost hard to see. But the movie is crafted so beautifully, and the performances are so well done, that that you're just sucked into every moment of this very long movie, and to the point where when it ends, you're not even upset about how long it was. You're just like, wow, what a beautifully told story. And even more so than Godfather Part 1. So that's probably the main reasons why I love Godfather Part 2.
Those are the best movies, too. I was just telling Gabe earlier, I watched Casino last night for the first time, and that movie is 3 hours. It did not feel like 3 hours. And so when you have movies that are so long, but you watch them and you're so drawn in and you're so in the moment that it doesn't feel like a 3-hour movie, that's a good movie. That's a really good movie.
Oh, yes.
And I'm still excited to see Godfather Part 2. It's on my list of things to watch. What scene? We'll add it, even though it's been added like 70 times. What do you have a scene from Godfather Part 2? And if it spoils something, I'll forget it. It's okay.
Okay. It's not a huge. Well, it's kind of a huge. Okay. Yeah. I'll say. Here's what I'll say. I'll say, and it's probably been added onto the ride because I'm sure I'm not the first person who thought of this scene. But there's a scene at a party where the people who have seen this are going to laugh because they know what I'm talking about, and I'm trying to be vague. But there's a scene at a party where two brothers confront each other and threaten each other, but in a way that they can't alarm the other party guests. And that's what I would put on the ride.
That was so discreet, yet everyone, like you said, everyone probably knows what it is. Thank you for sparing me, but at the same time, I would have forgotten anyways, so.
That it's all good. I don't want that moment to be robbed of you, and I didn't want to risk it.
Well, I appreciate that. It's very kind of you. Ryan, you have Reservoir Dogs. This was the first Tarantino movie I ever saw. I got the movie for $5 in a Blockbuster DVD bin. I was so excited to watch this. And, oh man, it blew me away. And that was just a fond memory I had about it. What for you?
This one was kind of hard because there's so many good movies in this genre. And like I stated before, I'm a huge Tarantino guy. So it just felt right to put Reservoir Dogs. Because, you know, they are mobsters. They have a heist. And I love that it all takes place in one building. Like, it takes place in the warehouse that they're in, and they're trying to figure out who the mole is. And it's just so, like, all the dialogue is realistic from when the movie starts, when they're all around the table talking about tipping. And it's such a real conversation that, like, anyone has had, and it just immediately captures you. I think that, you know, all his dialogue is like that, but speaking specifically on this movie, it just sucks you right in, and you get a feel for how scummy these characters are, because they're just talking about such a modern thing that we all do. We all, when we go out to eat, we tip, so it's something that, you know, everyone has done, so everyone has an opinion on it, so he just captures you right there from the get-go. And just the suspense whenever they're trying to figure out who the mole is, and then you, the audience, figure out who it is through the non-linear storytelling. And it's just so simple. It's such a simple idea that it's a heist movie, but it's not about the heist. It's what happens after. Mm-hmm. And it's very fascinating, and I really like that he took that approach with the movie.
I agree. I loved that everyone had, like, colors to their name. And I loved when I found it, there was like 4 different DVD covers of each character having their corresponding color behind. It was like part of the marketing a lot. I thought it was great.
That's cool.
Yeah. What scene from Reservoir Dogs would you put on the great movie ride?
Ooh, definitely. I can't remember the characters' color names, but it's definitely got to be whenever Tim Roth is bleeding out and he's pointing the gun at Harvey Keitel, and Harvey Keitel is pointing the gun at I can't remember the other guy, but the mob boss's son walks in and they're arguing, and just that tension that's in that moment of the actors and the characters still trying to figure out who the mole is, but as the audience member, you already know, so you just don't know when the gunpowder barrel is going to explode. And I think that scene is perfect for the ride.
Yeah, I think families will really love that on the ride.
I want to say that's white and orange. I could be wrong. I'm trying to think of a way to incorporate the gangster to come out and take the ride. Don't they, like, shoot each other? Spoiler alert.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think Harvey Keitel and the mob boss's son shoot each other. I think
right.
Tim Roth lives in that scene. I think.
We could have the gangster on the ground bleeding out and crawl into the ride and take it.
Oh my god.
That would be funny. Well, we're going to take a quick break here on the Great Movie Radio Show. When we come back, our character, our gangster, Gabe's going to take us through a few movies around the track before I kill him in Anubis. So, wonderful times. We'll be right back on the Great Movie Radio Show.
Shut up, you two. You want to blow our cover? Psst. Hey, you. You're listening to the Great Movie Radio Show starring Chris and Gabe. Don't nobody move until we get back, or else, if you know what I mean.
Warning. Remain on this podcast. The advertisement you are experiencing is extremely dangerous. Proceed with caution.
Autumn Star Entertainment is an independent producer of movies and video. Their goal is to provide Hollywood-level entertainment for low to no budget. Check them out on Facebook.com/Autumn Star Entertainment or on Twitter at AutumnStarENT.
Hey, what are you looking at? Hit the subscribe button to catch more of the Great Movie Radio Show starring Chris and Gabe, and maybe you won't get hoiked.
Here they come, boss!
Would you look at that, a red light. Running a red light's against the law, and I would never break the law. No more red light.
Hundreds of movie writers from around the globe have come together to recreate the magic of the Great Movie Ride during the past few months to bring you the Great Movie Ride, Quarantine Edition.
Well, gee, Mr. Kent, that'd be swell.
Witness the spectacular recreation of the ride from entrance to exit.
The Great Movie Ride brings these movies to life and puts you right in the middle of the action.
Danger. The emergency destruct system is now activated. The ship will detonate in T-minus 10 minutes.
It's time to take a magical journey into the movies once more.
Tarzan, wait! They're our friends, Owani.
The Great Movie Ride lives on in The Great Movie Ride, Quarantine Edition, coming soon.
Time for Chris and Gabe, hosts of the Great Movie Radio Show, to get back to work. I better lay low for a while, the heat's on. On second thought, I could go for some popcorn.
Awesome. Well, we are back. This is Gabe. I'm taking over now. But we're gonna hit some of the hit some of the movie genres that you would hit with the gangster, and we are gonna start off with westerns. Dalton, I'm gonna save yours for a second because I'm interested about your your western. So Ryan, Blazing Saddles. We've had it as a comedy, but what about it makes it your favorite western?
It's just, I mean, it's a comedy set in the Western era, and it is 100% a movie that could not be made today just because of the comedy that is in it. But when you watch it, you just can't help but laugh because of just how on the nose all the stereotypical jokes are in it. And it's just, I can't help but laugh at the same joke every time I watch it. And honestly, I tried watching a lot of the old Clint Eastwood Western movies, and those didn't really resonate with me as much as this movie did. So that's why it's definitely my favorite Western movie. It's just because it doesn't take itself seriously, and it's just fun. And Mel Brooks is absolutely funny with his writing and directing and what he does with his movies.
For sure, and I completely agree. This is not a movie that, if was made today, would be as successful as it was. We're going to jump over just because to Dalton's, just because yours is so unique. If you listen to my podcast, mine was Back to the Future 3. Your favorite Western is Logan.
Yes. That Hugh Jackman flick that came out a few years ago.
Yeah. I remember, and I just remember like being like, okay, this is like really awesome. But what about it like made it your favorite Western?
One of my favorite Westerns for me is that it's also one of the inspirations for the short film I'm making I was talking about earlier. But this really took the Western approach, and you know, it had the budget to give that visual aesthetic. You know, they're on the border of Mexico and Texas, and you know, you get that, you know, lonely, isolated Western vibe. but it's also it's a character piece about somebody who, their whole life was able to live with this family that was abruptly taken from them. And so he wants nothing to do with family. He wants nothing to do... he wants to die. And, honestly, what a relatable character arc. All that guy wants to do is just die. It's why can't he just die? It's the whole it's the whole movie. And then when he finally gets, confronted head on, not only by someone who's literally connected to him, but also someone who is a literal carbon copy of himself, he's literally facing his worst nightmare, and that's just the evil side of himself. And even with the Clint Eastwood westerns and even just other old-time Italian westerns, spaghetti westerns, something that those, anti-heroes often face is just, the animalistic nature of themselves and the fact that they don't have any rules. And I think that this film really did a great job modernizing that specific theme, especially because you have a character who, he's one of those characters that's just destined to never be happy. And, and I think a prime example of it is the scene in the film. For those of you who have seen it, there's a film where this small family, picks them up on the side of the road and, has dinner with them. And, the Logan character, Wolverine, has this moment of, wow, this is something that I could be a part of. This is something that I could really, I wish just this could happen in my life. And then, wiggity bam slam, they're all murdered. And it's oh my God. I made a joke out of it, but in the film, it's so heart-wrenching. It's so sad, and yes, you feel bad for the family that was actually died, but you just feel for this main character who every time happiness slivers into his life, it just gets taken away. And I think that central theme of old westerns that translates to this one just really hit home for me. So that's one of the reasons why I consider Logan a western and why I consider it one of my favorites.
Nice. So on the Great Movie Ride, the western scene is a mix of all movies. So we would be able to include both of your movies. Ryan, what scene from Blazing Saddles would you put in there?
I can't remember the sheriff's name, the one who rolls into town, but it's him and oh God, I feel like a criminal. I can't remember his name. What's
Gene Wilder's
character?
Gene Wilder.
Yeah, Gene Wilder. Thank you.
Yeah, the Waco kid.
Yeah. It's definitely whenever they're talking in the jail cell and they're just going back and forth and talking about how great of a marksman he was, and he's like, "Oh, that's not my shooting hand. This is my shooting hand," and lifts up his hand and it's just shaking everywhere, and that just blindsided me, and just how comedy can come out of nowhere in a serious moment.
Gotcha. Now, Dalton, would you put that scene that you were just talking about, or would you pick a different scene for the ride?
For the ride, I'd probably pick a more family-friendly scene. So I'd pick the scene where he just dies, and for that scene, just because it's the heart of the movie. It's the part that everyone who saw X-Men in 2000 was bawling their eyes out, or at least I was. There's actually a very funny story about me crying in the theater when this happened. But just that emotional crux of the movie. I want families and kids to be on this ride, and maybe some of them have seen Logan, and they don't want to go through that pain again, and then suddenly the ride just turns, and bam, there it is, kids. There's your trauma. and
then Con Air.
Yeah, no, and I literally, I was about to say also there's a scene in Con Air where the plane lands in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is technically a Western area, so we can get away with that being in the Western section.
Perfect. I don't need, based on those two scenes, I don't even know how we would incorporate
I don't know, unless
the bandit, but we'll figure it out.
I'm trying to think, but I can't think of anything.
It's just the bandit comes out with tissues. Here you go.
Here you
sorry
go,
about
sorry,
that. Here you go. Sorry. Spoiler, the finale has Iron Man dying. You're welcome. Sorry.
Oh, no.
There you go. You're going to need it for later.
The great sad movie radio show.
Awesome. So then we're going to jump into sci-fi now, and this is another scene where you both have two different ones. So Dalton, I'll start off with you. You have Blade Runner 2049.
Yes. This movie made me contemplate my whole entire existence, and don't you just love that?
Oh,
but
yeah.
Basically, this film takes the themes of the original classic and just doubles down on them and does them from a different perspective and in a way that you didn't think they'd be able to continue building this world and building this thematic story, and they do it to such perfection. And Ryan Gosling is one of my favorite actors, and just his performance in this movie, incredible. Harrison Ford really brought it back and gave it his all. And just the direction by Denis Villeneuve is one of my favorite filmmakers working today. Just everything about this movie was just beautiful. Like, usually when I review like movies or I think about movies, I try to think of negative things too, to balance my thoughts out. And this is one of those movies where I have a hard time, like, what didn't I like about it? And I have to really like be nitpicky if I was going to say something I didn't like about the film. And yeah, I love Blade Runner 2049, and especially just mostly because of the, you know, character interactions, the performances, and just the deep thematic storytelling that it just portrays effortlessly. They make it look easy.
Every moment of that film, I say the same thing about Mad Max Fury Road. You could pause any scene of that film, and it's just a work of art. Every single detail. And that's why I'm excited for his take on Dune that's supposed to come out this Christmas, hopefully still.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that he took such a classic cult movie that you could not even touch if you didn't want to, and not only made something that continued that and questioned things that were in the original, but it could be its own movie, was just... Oh, I remember at our Cinemark over there, we had the double feature, and I had the pleasure of getting to sit down and watch the final cut in the theater for the first time.
Oh,
and
that's
that
awesome.
premiere, and my wife was just sitting next to me. These are okay, and I'm just like goosebumps for like 4.5 hours straight, and I cannot tell you in words how that experience was, because it was just, I was in cinematic heaven.
Oh, yeah.
Chris, you should probably see a doctor. They said after 4 hours to call.
Well, it's not my fault they showed 2 movies back to back.
Right? It's also not our fault that they made Anna de Armas and Mackenzie Grace one person. You can't just do that.
She has become the celebrity crush in my life, and so anytime she pops up anywhere in the news feeds or anything, my wife's like, "There's your bae," and I'll just show her a picture of Adam Driver and tell her to shut up. But it's accurate. It's accurate. And she got cast for Knives Out. I was really excited because she's becoming such a great actress, and I'm excited to see her in she's gonna be in Bond, No Time to Die. She's gonna be so great. I'm excited. But yeah, continue. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, I'm sorry, Ryan, they're taking all your time.
No,
I knew
that's
Chris
fine.
would want to jump
I enjoy
in.
listening about movies and hearing about movies and whatever. It's fun.
So we'll jump into yours, Arrival. What about it? What do you like? What do you love? What do you hate?
Oh, God, I can't think of one thing I hate about this movie. It's been a little bit since I've seen the movie, I'm not going to lie, but it just resonated with me, and I'll always remember watching this movie in theaters and just being like, what the hell is this movie about? Like, it's so out there, and it just, I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but for myself, I was just kind of lost during it, because I was like, what do these aliens want? And obviously the characters are trying to figure that out, with Amy Adams being a linguist and trying to figure out exactly what they're talking about and what they're trying to communicate. And the part that just absolutely shook me was at the end, whenever they were like predicting the future about Amy Adams' child dying, and you know, her and Jeremy Renner having a relationship by the end, and just like the twist of that just absolutely shook me. And you know, I was watching it the whole time and I was lost, like I said, but I'm glad that, you know, by the end, everything, you know, Denis Villeneuve did to wrap it up and to draw some clarity into his movie that he was making. I absolutely love that he was able to lose you and then draw you back into the movie and wrap it up pretty nicely.
Nice. So obviously in the Great Movie Ride, like the alien scene was very detailed, had all this stuff. Ryan, what scene would you put from Arrival?
Ooh, probably just a very basic scene of the aliens communicating with Amy Adams and her holding up the whiteboard and basically asking questions and the aliens answering, just like that beautiful set design and just them communicating back and forth.
That's a good one.
Nice. Dawn, I don't think I asked you, what scene from Blade Runner 2049 would you add?
Towards the beginning, after Ryan Gosling just manhandles Dave Bautista, and but the scene when he's standing out by the tree and it cuts to that wide shot, just make that a whole ride by itself. Like, such a beautifully well-crafted scene and just such a wonderful shot.
I just want a Blade Runner ride. Just give me, so I can sit there for 4 hours again and have the goosebumps again.
And then have a doctor at the end.
Doctor at the end, you're right.
Cool. So we're going to jump into our action adventure scene. As we know in the Great Movie Ride, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. Dalton, I'm really interested in your movie. I've never heard of it, and I looked it up on IMDb, and it looks interesting. The Raid Redemption. What is this movie about, and what makes it such a great action adventure movie?
Gabe, you have never seen The Raid?
No.
I haven't either.
What? Okay.
I do have a question before Dalton goes on. Have you seen the Carl Urban Judge Dredd movie?
Yes.
It's been a long time. I think I saw it like when it first came out. Like my dad took me to the theaters.
That movie is basically the American rendition of The Raid.
Sold.
And, well, okay, sort of. They're very similar movies.
Yes, very similar, but they're not exactly the same.
But here's the thing. A movie that I like to compare this to, which Bruce Lee movie is it where it's like a video game where he goes from like floor to floor and has to fight a different person? Like, I forget which Bruce Lee movie that is.
Isn't that every Bruce Lee movie?
Basically. This movie is like that, except the plot of this movie is there's like a DEA SWAT team that basically found out that the head central location of like all the crime, and it's a foreign film, and it says all the crime in this city happens in this one building. And so they're all going to raid the building, and the main bad guy is in the top floor. So they have to go from the bottom floor to the top floor, and each floor is just a whole new wave of bad guys, basically. But what the audience finds out going into it is that the main villain's right-hand man is the brother of our main character. So basically, what you find out is he is not just going in there to get this bad guy, he's going in there to bring his brother home. So he has to just go in this building, and there's a moment in the movie when the other residents, because the residents are all like people who, are involved in crime, and all the residents, one resident sees them and notifies the leader that the police are there. Then the the main villain goes over the loudspeaker of the whole hotel and goes, "We have some uninvited guests, and if you're the one that kills them all, free rent for life." And then just every room opens up, and you're just like, oh God, here we go. And when I tell you, look, I have seen over 2,000 movies. This movie has the best action choreography that I have ever seen in my life. This film and the second film. Just unbelievable choreography and the cinematography of the action scenes. It's like your jaw is on the floor during these hand-to-hand combat scenes. And this film was made for $1 million US. So you're just watching this low-budget action movie completely blow your mind. And I watched that movie, and because I knew there was a second one. As soon as I watched this movie the first time, I immediately was trying online, okay, where the hell can I rent this second movie? Oh my God. It is such an action thrill ride that, makes your skin crawl. The violence, the action scenes are so well done, and just at the heart of it is this familial story of just trying to bring the prodigal son home, and it's so good.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up, especially, I'm I've done short skits and stuff, and I've tried to record fight scenes, and I know how difficult they are. But when I see a beautiful one, I was just watching The Bourne Identity last night, and some of those fight scenes and choreography, I'm just blown away. So once you said that, I was like, all right, I need to figure out how I can watch this movie, and just the story alone.
Yeah, and the action short film that we made, No More Safe Haven, the one that screened in LA. The action scenes in that were very much so inspired by The Raid, except, we're a bunch of chubby children trying to be like The Raid. so while I do commend our action scenes and I'm proud of what we got, it's the only reason they were even remotely okay is because this movie exists. So, yes.
I just added it to my watch list, so I'm going to have to look that up. Yep, I'm in.
I'm literally, after we're done here, I'm going to see where I can find it.
And I've heard of it, too. I think Scott Derrickson, who directed Doctor Strange, added it to his top 10 of the decade, and I been maybe I should watch that, and then just completely forgot about it, like I do everything in my life. So I've got to watch that. That sounds incredible. And when you said if you like Dread, you'll like this, I was like sold immediately.
So before we jump over to Ryan's, what scene would you add from that movie? I'm curious now.
There's a scene where it's about a 6-minute fight scene of 2 good guys versus 1 bad guy. And at one point, they take a light bulb, like one of those long, like fluorescent, skinny light bulbs, crack it, and stab the villain in the neck. But then the villain gets up and continues fighting for 3 minutes.
Oh my God.
I would put that on the ride.
Wow.
I need a doctor. I have goosebumps. No, that's okay. That's awesome. All right, Ryan, let's talk about your movie. No, I'm just kidding. Ryan, you have Pirates of the Caribbean, the whole franchise.
Yeah. No, I will openly admit I love this whole franchise to bits. If I had to pick one that was my favorite of the franchise, I'd have to say Dead Man's Chest, which is the second one. And that one really feels like an adventure. I mean, all these are adventure movies at its core, right? But speaking specifically on the second one, where they have to go search for Jack Sparrow, and Jack Sparrow is hiding from the Dutchman. I can't remember his name, but he's hiding from Davy Jones. Yeah, he's hiding from Davy Jones and the Flying Dutchman and his crew, and Orlando Bloom has to go search for him. So it's just a pure adventure movie that is just so much fun, and I always smile and have a good time anytime I watch, whether it's this movie or any movie of the franchise. It's just a lot of fun for me.
So obviously this is a big franchise. And like, this is your own movie, right? So if you want to add multiple scenes from multiple movies, you can. But what would you add into your great movie ride from the whole series?
Yeah, so one that sticks out to me, like if you really want to capture how much adventure is in this movie, it's definitely from the second one. Whenever Norringham and Orlando Bloom are sword fighting on the wheel. The water wheel, and they're just fighting, and Jack Sparrow's on there as well, and some of the Flying Dutchman crew are running, and it's just like a whole adventure scene, and it's so outlandish and so crazy, but it's also fun at the same time, and I feel like that would really encompass the whole adventure of the franchise.
Nice, yeah, and definitely put a twist. You know, Disney already having a Pirates ride, and they added Jack Sparrow into it. So that's awesome. All right, so we're going to jump into one of my favorite genres, the horror movies. Ryan, we'll go back to you, to the 1968 Night of the Living Dead.
Oh my gosh, yeah, what a fantastic movie. I had recently just watched this for the first time within the past 2 years, so fairly recent. And growing up, I had always been a fan of like the zombie genre. But George A. Romero obviously put that into the mainstream and had a lot of fun with this movie and all the movies and all the spinoffs that came from this movie. It's just so horrifying, and this is like another example of one of those movies that like left me like shaking after the movie, especially how it ends. The ending is what is probably the most horrifying moment of the whole movie for me. And have both of you guys seen it?
Yeah.
Okay.
My dad tormented me and put it on one night, and I like freaked out. I think it was like 6, and I was like,
oh my god.
Okay. So you guys know how it ends, and I'll go ahead and spoil it. So spoiler alert for anyone who may be listening and haven't seen it. The ending, the main actor, I can't remember his name, but this movie did come out in the 60s, so when you look at the time, it makes it even worse. The ending, the hero of the movie is an African-American man, and at the end, the cops are hunting down these zombies, and they find the house that this man was in, and he saved, I think, 1 or 2 people in the house from the zombie invasion. Everyone else in the house did die. And as soon as he stands up in the window, the cops see movement, and they just immediately fire without investigating what's in the house, who's in the house, whether it's a survivor or a zombie. They just immediately start blasting in the house, and they kill him, and the movie just ends right there. And it is so, like, when you think about the time that it came out and the history around the time, especially in the 60s with the whole civil rights movement, it is such just a shocking end. And even when I watched it, I couldn't believe that was the ending that they wanted to go with, and it just left me shaking after the movie, because I was just so like on edge, and I was like, I can't believe they wrapped the movie like that.
And sadly, we
Nice.
still have issues currently. It's a sad thing, but I do remember having that same feeling watching that, and just I had goosebumps, but for a completely different reason. It's just how horrified I was at that scene, and just how abrupt and out of nowhere too, because I did not see that coming, and just it scares me to death. It really does.
Yeah. And then Dalton, you have Psycho, another classic.
Yes.
What is about it that makes it your favorite horror movie?
There are a lot of things that make this one of my favorite horror movies. Part of it is, it's a Hitchcock film, and he directs the hell out of this movie, and it's just, and a lot of people are hesitant, especially people my age are hesitant to watch the movie because it's like, oh, it's black and white and it's old, but no, this is one of the best directed movies I've ever seen. And also, just the whole character of Norman Bates is just such a fascinating character, and Anthony Perkins' performance of Norman Bates, if I were to rank my favorite performances of all time, he would definitely be in probably the top 5. It is such a unique and creepy performance, especially, this is also one of those movies, everybody knows the twist ending in this movie, so I'll probably say it at some point. But, and part of the reason why this film still holds up upon many rewatches is the dialogue. The dialogue in this movie is so creepy. The scene... And I'll jump ahead and say this is what I'd put in my great movie ride. This scene when him and Janet Leigh's character have lunch, and they're sitting in the back of the motel, and she's just asking him questions about his life, and each answer is just slowly more creepy. And just as an audience member, you're like, what in the hell is wrong with this guy? Just the more he says, just the more incriminating he gets, and you're just like, yeah, you need to get out of there. What is going on? And and there was at one point where she says something hey, your mother treats you very horribly. Have you considered just putting her in a home? But she says it out of the kindness of this guy's life being not under his control, and the way he just looks at her and completely dismisses what she says and almost threatens her, put her in a nut house so she can go and be treated like this, and the music swells and that performance starts to kick in, and you're just like, yeah, I'll take that for $400, Alex. No. Everything with that sequence in particular is one of my favorite sequences in the film, and you have the incredible twist ending of, the multiple personalities, and he is his mother, and, it's such a great film. Even that one really dumb scene at the end where they have to have the psychiatrist come in and explain what multiple personality disorder is because it's 1960, and it's just that's the only part of the movie that doesn't age well. But every other part of the movie is just, it's tight, it's precise, it's scary, and just the theme of paranoia. I love the scenes of Janet Leigh just driving, and she's imagining the conversations her bosses are having since she's stole this money, and she's just imagining the conversations they're having and acting based off of her own imaginary conversations. And it's just God, that's me every time I try to prepare for an argument with somebody. Oh, I'm so going to win this argument. And then they say something that I didn't plan for, and I'm like, oh God, I lost already. So it's just kind of one of those moments with her. And just, and this was one of the first big movies that killed its main build star 15 minutes into the movie. And this has become a tradition in horror. Scream did it. I love Scream. Nightmare on Elm Street did it. And, you have countless horror examples that where this set the bar. And while this came before the slasher era, many film historians credit this movie and Peeping Tom as the beginning of the slasher, the pretty much the godfather of slasher movies. And then it wasn't until Halloween comes along where they became steadily popular. But looking back, this was the precedent for that whole time in horror cinematic history.
Well, since you already said your scene, Ryan, we'll go back to you. What scene from Night of the Living Dead would you add on the Great Movie Ride?
They're all trapped in the house, and they look at every window, and all the zombies are trying to break in, just that trapped feeling that you have.
Perfect. So after they cry in Western, they're gonna put their pants or
exactly. Yeah, it's gonna be an eventful ride.
We could have the tour guide act as a zombie and come in the house and be like, ta-da, and then get shot.
Oh my God.
And that's the ride.
There's the doctor.
That's it. Sorry, he died. the turnover rate at Great Movie Ride
Oh, man.
is increasing by day.
So all the CPs are going to be tour guides now.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. All right. Well, since Gabe has now been killed by our survivors in the house, sorry, bud. I'm going to. Oh no, wait, that would have been me. I'm dead. Gabe, you get the rest of the show then, I guess.
No.
Well, I'm going to take over the ride, and we're going to go into drama. Dalton, I see you have Ordinary People on your list. I haven't seen it. I'm assuming it's the 1980 Robert Redford movie?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so what about this film? Tell me, as someone who's never seen it, tell me about it.
This film is just heartbreaking from the first frame. Like, the story of this film is about two brothers that were in a boating accident, and one brother unfortunately didn't make it. But the brother that didn't make it was the favorite child of the family. So this film follows the brother who survived, who is just completely ignored by mostly his mother. His father is okay. His father is just dealing with grief and still loves his son. But the mother, who's played by Mary Tyler Moore, brilliantly by her, just cannot believe that her favorite son has died and just completely refuses to give this child the time of day. And, he's I believe he's in high school when this happened, so it's just about him going to therapy and just trying to, pretty much this character's goal the whole movie is, how do I get my mother to love me? And it is just this heartbreaking journey that this film goes on. I believe it won Best Picture the year that it came out. Like, it is such a great film, and just there, like I said, there are so many heartbreaking scenes that this movie has, that this character goes through, and you really just start to really root that just any ounce of happiness can come into this kid's life, and just seeing how hard he tries just to be loved after such a horrible incident. And I'm really being a Debbie Downer of the episode talking about this movie, but it's such a heartbreaking movie, and just it's one of those things where after you're done watching it, you just want to take a shower. You're just my goodness, this movie is just too much. And yeah, I'd say that's why it's one of my all-time favorite dramas, and Robert Redford directs this movie beautifully.
I was going to say you want to take a shower after watching it. I was going to make a Psycho reference, but I'm not going to do that. All right. And then for Ryan, you have Parasite, which won everything last year and just blew everybody out of the water at the Academy Awards, and I didn't get to see it till after. Wait. We watched it 6 days before the awards because we were waiting for something. I forgot what. But it was such a good movie, and what a way to depict the different levels of society and how each of them affect each other. And just, I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. It depicts the different classes of society, more specifically South Korean society, both visually with the cinematography and obviously through the story, because the main family, they literally live below street level, and they are the poor family of the group, and then they end up infiltrating and working for this rich family, and they literally live on a hill. They walk up to their house, and I thought that was absolutely brilliant with the visual storytelling of showing the different classes of society, of South Korean society. And I remember watching this movie, and just it felt very lighthearted at first. You sympathized with the family and their troubles that they had to go through to make money and to live. And throughout the movie, you're just I feel like there's something more to this. I feel like something, the big thing hasn't happened yet. I don't know what it is. And then just as the movie goes, and that horrible storm happens, and then the old maid comes back and forgets something, and then it just immediately turns into a horror suspenseful movie. And just that slow graduation that it has towards that is absolutely outstanding on how they were able to do that. How Bong Joon-ho was able to do that, both with his writing and his directing, I think is absolutely fantastic. And I've never seen a movie quite like this one. And like you said, it won Best Picture, won all the awards, and honestly, rightfully so, because that movie is absolutely fantastic.
I agree. My favorite scene of the movie, I forgot what was going on around it, but it was the kitchen area with the stairwell going to the basement was dark, and then you just see the guy's head rise above the stairs slowly, and just like the only like light you see of the room is the white of his eyeballs. And just how creepy, and it was so straight shot.
It's absolutely horrifying just watching that.
And there's nothing going on in this room for a couple seconds, and all of a sudden you just see this guy's head, because it was the first time out of the basement in like years for this guy. And if you haven't watched the movie, you probably don't understand the context. That just means you have to watch it. And so this guy's been in the basement for years, and just the slow rise of his head, and just it hit that horror tone so subtly. It was, oh my god, that moment
absolutely
freaked me out so much, but it was such a good movie. Do you have we'll go back to you, Dalton, with Ordinary People. What scene would you put in our drama section?
Oof, I know exactly the scene. It's surprise, it's really sad, but there's a scene where the mother and the father in this film go on like a Christmas vacation. Mm-hmm. And during that time, the son, like they don't bring their son, and the son is just like going through all this therapy, and he's like really confident that like, hey, maybe after this vacation, everything will go back to normal, and everything will be fine. And then he sees his parents' car pull into the parking lot, and he runs outside, and he sees his mother, and he just goes, "Mom, I'm so happy that you're home," and he hugs her, and the mother just stands there and doesn't do anything, doesn't hug him back, just stands there.
Oof.
And it's so sad, and just I think that, and like I love like the goal of this movie ride that we've been making is just how many times can we make children cry, and I think that this one will help.
I was about to say we just need to have Kleenex part of our gear, Gabe, and
we're sponsored by Kleenex.
And the great movie cry, the great movie cried. We'll call it that. And we're having so many tearful moments on this ride. And then Ryan, Parasite, what would you put on the ride?
Well, I want to go for more lighthearted tone, so I would definitely want to pick the scene where the family, the rich family, went on vacation, and the poor family is in there. They're eating snacks around the table. They're laughing. They're joking. They're just having a pure family moment. Obviously, before everything hits the fan, just whenever they're laughing, having a good time, joking, talking about stories of their lives and whatnot.
That was a great moment because, like you said, it's right before everything went to hell in that movie. And oh man, I love Parasite. I'll have to check out Ordinary People. I didn't know about it honestly until I was reading over your list and did some research, and I love everything that I've seen Robert Redford do. He's one of my favorites, and I don't know how this one slipped past me, so I'm definitely gonna have to check it out.
No, it's good. I love just when either if someone tells me a movie I've never heard of or vice versa, because it just spreads the cinematic love language.
It's the best, and what's fun is I'm gonna take this moment to say this. I love finding out about movies that have been around forever that I should know about, and I've heard nothing about it, because each time it's a new discovery, and not only is it a joy for me, but I'm sure, like you said, it's a joy for the person who got to share that. And that's the wonderful thing about cinema and film, and what I love about this show is we get to share these moments that is special to you, but I have no idea it exists, and then we just share it with everybody, and it's a beautiful thing.
Oh yes, I agree.
So, all right, that's my 2 cents. So going into animation, you both share the favorite, and I love this movie so much, and I'm so happy he finally got to do some live action with the Mission Impossible franchise. But The Iron Giant, one of Brad Bird's cinematic masterpieces in the world of animation, it's such a beautiful film. Ryan, we'll let you start with your reasoning of loving this film.
I think it's just, growing up watching this, it's just this movie has a lot of heart. And especially with the main character, I can't remember the character's name. Hogarth, thank you. Hogarth, yeah. It's a very strange name. But just of him finding a friend in this alien giant that the government wants, but he's just a kid, so he just wants to play with him, and the giant obviously is very interested in all these new things that he's experiencing as a sentient being, and just the kid wanting to have fun, and he has this basically this weapon of mass destruction that he's playing with, and it's just it has a lot of heart, and it's a heartfelt movie, and I absolutely love Hogarth and what he does with the Iron Giant and just their relationship that they have.
I agree. Dalton, what about you?
I echo some of Ryan's sentiments, and also just the underlying theme of nuclear war, especially in the time period it takes place in, and you have that with this amazing childlike innocence with this being, and it also just kind of, there's an underlying story there of when something's newborn, it's all about what you teach it. And, Hogarth showed this, being nothing but kind of love, and only taught him about how to be nice to things. Mm-hmm. And it really just showed the effect it had on how this weapon of mass destruction didn't live out its purpose. It was able to be something else. And also just, I love a good, analogy. And my favorite superhero of all time is Superman. So the connections that they put to Superman in this movie and the comparisons, and just it's such a perfect, beautiful metaphor. And just how they're able to tie that in just has a special place in my heart. And this is one of the first. God, we keep picking movies that are gonna make kids cry. But I remember this was one of the first movies when I was younger where I remember being emotional, and it wasn't because I was too scared or so. It was just because I genuinely liked the story so much, and so it just has that special place for me.
Got it. No, I'm looking at my shelf right here. I actually have a little 6-inch figurine of him wearing the Superman emblem. And no, it's one of my favorite little figurines I have. I love that movie so much. So yeah, what scene from the Iron Giant would you guys put? And what's great is I feel it could be so much more interactive than what we had on the original ride, because it was just a screen with Fantasia. And Iron Giant, with all its cinematic and animated marvels that it brought to the screen, you could be more three-dimensional with this, and it just be beautiful. What would you guys do with it? We'll start with Ryan.
I want to go with the scene that really affected me as a kid, so we're going to go back to making kids cry. At the end, whenever the military storms into the town, and basically the Iron Giant he understands his purpose, that he has to basically destroy himself and essentially die for the military to stop doing what they're doing and go back to peace. And Hogarth is right by his side wanting to help him, but the Iron Giant says something along the lines of stay, or very simple 10 words of just let me take care of this, I know what I need to do. And it's just a very heartbreaking moment, because he has to sacrifice himself for the greater good of the movie.
Gotcha. What about you, Dalton?
For me, I would probably do the scene when Hogarth and the Iron Giant first meet, and with his broken BB gun. I love that image, and just I love the reveal scene of the Iron Giant, and obviously it scares the holy bejesus out of Hogarth, and just having that moment remade onto the Great Movie Ride. It's not the end of their relationship. They end up loving each other, but it's fun to be reminded how that's how it started, was this meeting right here.
Got it. Would you guys keep it like an animated screen, or would you try to go three-dimensional with it? Because like I said, I feel that you could do some wonderful animatronics with the giant personally, and just have some cool lighting on it. What would you guys do with that?
Assuming that we have the money of the gods, I would pay someone a bunch of money to build a functioning robot, and then I would hire actors to play the human characters, except they're never allowed to leave. So it's really interactive. You really get the sense that they're in that moment from the audience's perspective. You got to make sure you do it right.
We could just break some child labor laws and have a kid trapped there as Hogarth, and
oh, no problem.
Awesome. No tissues for him though.
Sweet.
Oh no.
Awesome.
No, just the pens.
All right, so we're going to wheel it into where Oz was, and like we've mentioned on previous episodes, this is where we put comedy, because the ride didn't really cover it. Ryan, you have some great ones in your list, but your number 3 is one of my absolute favorites. Number 2, we've talked about before, What We Do in the Shadows, so I want to talk about your number 3, Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
I love Hot Fuzz so much, and it's my favorite of the Cornetto trilogy. Edgar Wright just made this brilliant action comedy that every time I watch it, I laugh hysterically. I have very wonderful stories about seeing it in the theater for the first time. What about it makes it a favorite for you?
Probably that this hotshot cop in this big city did so well that made everyone else look bad, and just that goofy premise of like, hey, you're so good, we're basically going to promote you but demote you at the same time. And you're going to go to this perfect utopia where there's no crime, so you can just basically retire. And just the idea of like someone being so good that they just got put down, I think is a hysterical way to approach this movie.
Got it. And then for Dalton, you have Young Frankenstein as your favorite comedy, and this is not
a late edition.
Yeah, a late edition as someone who did not list his comedy movies. We'll throw you under the ride vehicle, literally. Yeah, I know. Ouch! It's gonna be a slow burn like in Deadpool with the Zamboni. So what about Young Frankenstein for you, my friend?
Part of it is I'm a very big Mel Brooks fan, and also I have a huge thing, and I just recently reviewed Fast Times at Ridgemount High, and I mentioned this in that review, and that's I love movies that are a good movie first, and then they're funny. And I think that Young Frankenstein is a prime example of that. You know, you have this character with a backstory, a family that he hates being a part of, but then learning to accept that part of himself, and, you know, the triggering music that sets him into these moods, and you have, like, the unwillingness to be a part of his family's legacy. Like, you have all these deep themes and stories, and then on top of that, it's just absolutely hysterically funny. And it's just this amazing masterpiece of a comedy. And the fact that they were able to use, like, the original props from the 30s Frankenstein movie and almost make this, like, an official Frankenstein movie, even though it's, like, this sequel spoof kind of thing. And Gene Wilder's performance is just... oh my god, like every time I watch this movie, even like right from the opening scene when they clearly mess with their test patient way too much and the audience claps, then Gene Wilder just whispers to his assistant, hey, give this guy an extra $1. Like I love all, just every little comedic bit, and the comedic timing is perfect. And Marty Feldman as Igor, like, oh my god, so hilarious. And like just so many like wonderfully timed comedic scenes. Like I love the scene when they get to the castle and the door has these giant, like, round knockers on them, and Igor starts knocking on the door, and then while Gene Wilder's removing one of the female characters from the cart, her breasts are kind of in his face, but he looks at the door and says, "What knockers?" And the girl's like, "Oh wow, thank you." And it's just like, just little stuff like that, but it's like consistent throughout the entire film. And like I said, at the end of the day, it's the rich characters and the good storytelling that's layered throughout the comedy that really just put this above most comedies for me. That and the cinematography, for some reason, decided to be stupid good. Like, for some reason, they were like, hey, you know what this movie doesn't need? Good cinematography. You know what we're going to have? Good cinematography. So they just did it. They did that for us. So, you know.
Oh, I agree. And, I mean, I grew up with Willy Wonka, and I didn't see Young Frankenstein for the first time until like a couple years ago. But I would have to say, growing up, Willy Wonka was my favorite Gene Wilder movie. Now I think Young Frankenstein is.
I agree with that. Like every part of that. Yes.
It's my more mature favorite Gene Wilder film, I guess we could say. Ryan, we'll go back to you. What scene now? Oz, you didn't get to ride the Great Movie Ride, which I'm very sorry to hear. Oz was very interactive. It was like this event. You came in and there were munchkins, not like the football thing we talked about earlier. And the witch came out, and you got the disser, or the tour guide got the disser, and it was this great moment. And then you walked or rode through, and then there's the Emerald City in the background, and this happy, joyous occasion. Well, Hot Fuzz kind of has that at moments, but also not at all, because there's just murder everywhere. Murder. We'll say, is there a moment in Hot Fuzz that you feel is event enough, or like such a big moment that you feel that we could put in this section of the ride?
Yeah, I can't remember the whole context of the dialogue, but it's whenever they find out that the jig is up, that really this cult of the town, they've been murdering people and whatever.
The neighborhood watch.
Yeah, the neighborhood watch. They're in the store, the grocery store. And what's his name?
Nicholas Angel? Or?
Nick Frost. Whenever
God.
he's just loading the shotgun and he just goes, "Shame!" Like I quote that with Dalton all the time, and like I said, I can't remember the specifics of the dialogue.
It's become a meme now too. That's what's great.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you care if I?
Go.
Like Simon Pegg tells Nick Frost, like, "Oh, I just threw that guy in the freezer," and then Nick Frost goes, "Did you say cool off after you did it?" And he goes, "No," and then he goes, "Shame," and loads the shotgun.
That's what it is. Thank you, Dalton.
All the puns in that movie are just brilliant, and I love the moment where they call him Angle, because they got the newspaper editor is really bad with information and typos, and instead of saying Angel, which is the main character's name, Nicholas Angel, they put Angle. He puts Angle, and so he's walking through the police department the next day, and they're all like, "Morning, Angle. Morning, Angle."
The comedy in that is just next level, especially since Nick Frost's character is a cop, but he just watches all these action movies, and that's all he wants, man. That's the life he wants to live, and now he's able to live it.
He's living in the little town, and he's... is it true that when you shoot a man in the head, his head will blow up?
I think he does the Point Break thing at the end, too, doesn't he?
He does the shoot in the air, or he's aiming at his dad, who's running away, and he shoots him in the air. And it's so good. Have you seen it, Gabe?
Yes, I've seen. I was going to say if we could add anything to that scene, it's just the mothers, all with like salt.
That is my traditional Mother's Day shout out to everyone. I find the picture of him, and he comes around the corner. "You mothers," and it's just them coming down and that's my Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to everyone every year. Just that movie.
That's as you leave the scene, and instead of Dorothy and all of them, it's just mothers.
Oh, it's such a good movie. Dalton, what about you with Young Frankenstein?
I think the scene from Young Frankenstein that would be perfect for a great movie ride would probably be the scene when Dr. Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster are performing on stage.
Yes.
And they're doing on the Ritz. And then,
yes.
And then it gets to the monster, and he's just like, "Murder, murder, murder." It's so funny. And just from a construction standpoint, now we're getting technical. Like from a construction standpoint, it'd be easy to make that part of the ride. So there you go.
There you go. And you could have the...
Well, we spent all the money on the Iron Giant, so now we have to make it a little easier.
So you could have the tour guide hop off and do the Ritz with Frankenstein's monster, or your Frankenstein's monster. So you're like, and just have fun. I don't know, because there's that interactive moment between the tour guide and the witch in Oz originally. Oh man. Well, Ryan and Dalton, we're gonna pull it back to Doc, and this has been a really fun episode, and to have both of you on there, it's different because we've never had two guests, so it's been nice because we're getting a double dose of movie ride with this, so it's been a treat, and thank you guys so much for coming on. Do you wanna do a little harmless plug for movie nights here at the end, and where to follow and all that jazz?
Absolutely, and we've been having a great time, so thank you. And for movie nights, you can find us on YouTube, Movie Nights, 2 separate words, spell nights with a K. I hate that we made that, because now we have to specify every time. I can't tell you how many times my grandmother's been like, "I'm typing Movie Nights, but I can't find you guys." And I'm like, "Did you use a K?" And they're like, "Ah." And I'm like, "Ah, damn it. I can't believe we did that." But yeah, that's where you can find us on YouTube. That's where a majority of our content are. If you just type in my name on Amazon Prime, you'll see some of the short films we've made there on Amazon as well. And for on social media, Facebook, just at Movie Nights, and for Instagram and Twitter, at Nights_movie, because some moron took Movie Nights, so we had to settle for Nights_movie. But yeah, that's our Instagram and Twitter. And yeah.
Do we know who this moron is, and can we find him?
Trust me, if I knew who it was, I would have tried some Jay and Silent Bob stuff by now, where I just fly to their house.
All right. right. Well, thank you guys for being on. Gabe, do you have any last words before we depart?
No, it was an absolute pleasure hearing you guys talk about the movies, and just your love for movies is really awesome. And now I really need to go see some of your movies.
The Raid. I gotta watch
The
that.
Raid, especially.
Thank you guys again for being on the show, and thank you all for listening to the Great Movie Radio Show. And we'll see you next time. The Great Movie Radio Show is recorded in Orlando, Florida. You can visit our website at www.thegmrshow.com. Art direction and logo design provided by Mr. Bayless. Voiceover and intro work provided by Dave Fesky and Joe Erickson. You can find our podcast on multiple platforms such as Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and many more. Music provided by the YouTube Audio Library. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Just search The Great Movie Radio Show or The GMR Show. This has been The Great Movie Radio Show. We hope you enjoy your day, and we'll see you at the movies. The stuff dreams are made of. Goodbye, everyone.
You have been listening to a GMR radio production.